Hi, this is Tim Andrews, President and Chief Executive Officer of ASI. Welcome to ASI's distributor webinar on the coronavirus and its impact on the promotional products industry. If anyone listening has any questions for our panel as the discussion proceeds, just type the question into the questions box on the right-hand side and we'll try to get to them during the session. Please welcome our panel, top 40 distributors and members of the Council of Power 50, Joanne Lance from Geiger, Craig Nadell from Jack Nadell International, Phil Kusud of BAMCO, and Joe Gilly from Overture Promotions. Thank you all for joining us. Let's get started with sort of the current status of your business, sort of what's happening, what are you hearing from your distributors, what are they concerned about, but sort of just give us an update on sort of the current status. Let's start with Joanne.
Good afternoon, Tim, and hello, everybody. This is Joanne Lance, and in regards to our business, we're a business that spans the U.S. and also in the U.K. And like many other people, we've seen in the last 8 to 10 business days a decline in order activity for many of our clients, in particular in the education field. We are monitoring the business in terms of where orders are picking up and clients that are very, very active versus those that are inactive. Probably the most interesting thing in the status of our business is the issue now of packages being shipped to clients that are in states that have a shelter in place, and having a practice of having them being returned to ourselves rather than our suppliers, trying to understand when they'll accept goods on hand. So it's certainly a fluid position and one that is changing quickly every day.
Thank you, Joanne. And you have people all across the United States and as you mentioned, also in the UK. Are you seeing differences between the US and the UK or really similar situations happening in both locations?
In regards to the UK, they're about 2 weeks ahead of us in terms of activity or lack of activity for the pandemic crisis. Their government has not necessarily stepped in as quickly as in some of the states in the United States. So there's been more of a spread and more of an issue in regards to the healthcare systems than in the U.S. So we're using that as a leading indicator of what we might experience here in the U.S.
Okay, thank you. Let's jump to Phil Kusud. Phil, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead. What's the status of your business, Phil?
So right now, I can say that our team has been really stepping up in a real significant way. Our leadership team is the strongest it's ever been, and I've seen more career best performances from our team in the past few weeks than I ever remember seeing in 1 year of business. So, it'd be totally understandable, I think, if people were to kind of just crawl into a hole and focus on all the distractions that are out there. But our team is really pulled together, and there's real energy behind kind of chipping in and doing our part. We're a different type of company, I think, in the sense that we do have a diversified supply chain, and our platform is cloud-based. So the work from home aspect has been relatively straightforward for us, and something we had seen coming for quite some time because of our offices in China. So we went to work from home kind of earlier than I think anyone in the industry, and that's helped from a business continuity perspective. The way we view this is there's challenging times. We were able to grow by 50% during the Great Recession, and the reason we were able to do that is because we focused not only on just the survival aspect, we focused on what opportunities are out there. And I think there's opportunities even in these tough times. I can't comment on our numbers specifically because we're publicly traded, but I can tell you I'm getting calls from small distributors across the country, probably a dozen a day, of people that are struggling really, really, really bad. I think that the smaller distributors in particular, the ones that are taking it on the chin, and so we're trying to help out in any way we can with those folks that are just struggling to get by.
Great, thank you. Joe Gilly from Overture Promotions. Talk to us a little bit about your business and sort of the current status of the business.
We have a couple clients in the grocery and takeout delivery business. We were declared an emergency services provider by the state of Illinois because we're in their supply chain, critical to their supply chain. So we're actually quite busy in in terms of those two clients, to the point where we have not just operations staff, but front of house staff coming in to help. Otherwise, it's pretty slow. We do have some clients who are planning ahead, who are, we're doing a lot of quoting, we're doing a lot of ideation for events that have now moved to the fall or to the summer. A couple customers are asking us for ideas for work from home things for their employees, candles and yoga mats and that kind of thing. But it's pretty slow, except for those two customers that we're fortunate to have. And thank you for having me on, by the way.
Absolutely. We'll come back to Craig. Joanne, I know you as a planner. Did you have, a variety of contingency plans in place, and have you been able to really implement any of those, or is this such an unusual situation? I mean, never before have we faced a situation as Americans where we're worried about our health, about our colleagues' health, about our family and friends, about our business, about our 401k. And this is really an unusual situation, and that's really an understatement. But sort of what contingency planning did you have in place, and as this started becoming clear to you because of what was going on in Europe, what kind of plans did you put in place, and how did you sort of move forward to get to where we are today?
It's interesting. Back in 2010, we developed a pandemic preparedness plan. And so on just about the end of January 30th is when we pulled the plan out, and then we set up our team. And we have a team of 12 people, and it's across both continents. And it's multidiscipline: IT, HR, sales, operational, legal, and we started huddling 3 times a week. So we started early in our planning and reviewed our templates. That plan had been updated every other year, thank goodness. So it was pretty up to date. And we started looking at how does this compare to H1N1 and some of the other pandemic scares, and realized because of the close down or the slowdown in our supply chain in China, that it was going to impact us pretty quickly. So we also set up a group in the state of Maine of CEOs. We actually have been meeting every 6 weeks anyways as a business, and they started pulling their pandemic plans, and we were comparing with each other. So it was very helpful. It really guided us in terms of travel, visitors, personal safety. So we were able to really run down those lists, IT, security, and check them off pretty quickly.
And so when were you able to get all of your staff working from home, and how's that going so far?
We had 100% of the staff on both continents, with the exceptions of the distribution and decoration centers, working from home midweek last week. We had decided that we were going to move all associates at home prior to the state shutdowns. It went flawlessly, seamlessly. We're even able to move our main switchboard area, I should say, even to an at-home situation. So we'd had about 50% of our Geiger workforce already working from home. We had offered that as an option for employees. So we already had the technology for Microsoft Teams and GoToMeeting, the headsets, the multi-screens, all that technology already was in-house. So it was pretty easy to move staff at home.
Phil Kusid. Phil, you mentioned that you're in the cloud and your people have often been working from home, and you're seeing some business opportunities. So, did you really have to put any plans in place, or were you sort of operating? Are you sort of operating as you always do right now? And also, where are you seeing opportunities? And in terms of the distributors you've been talking to, who are seeing some real problematic situations with their own businesses, and this is across the board. Everyone's having difficulties. What kind of advice did you give to those folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that to the first question, I would say we were prepared for it from a technology standpoint. Core, our proprietary ERP that we built in-house, was built to be run from anywhere. So we were prepared for this situation exactly, even though we didn't anticipate that there would be this situation exactly. I think more than anything, we prepared from a culture standpoint. You know, our company, our culture is built around the idea of overcoming adversity as the basis of our growth. And so we're really built for situations like this. And I think that, you know, it's important as an industry that we focus on that as well. You know, when I'm talking to distributors, you know, and they're at various states of their acceptance curve of this. Some called me a couple, I'm not sure there's some feedback there, but some called me a couple weeks back and said, do you think this is really as bad as it is? And I said, yes, you know, we've been watching this in China for the last 3 months, and it certainly is. And others were calling a couple weeks ago saying, what do I do? It hasn't hit me yet, but I think it's going to hit me. So different people are at different spots. But what I can say is that for the distributors, the advice I've given them is if they're a small distributor, first things first, you know, your obligation is to go and make sure you protect the sanctity of the business, because if you go under, everyone loses their jobs. And that first starts with you, the entrepreneur. And so I've been telling them, you basically cut your pay as much as you possibly can in order to save jobs. Then the second step is cutting back the number of hours of people. And the third step, and the one that a lot of people are painfully taking, as we've seen, is cutting pay and cutting jobs. And, you know, these are tough times. And if you don't take action, you make them a lot tougher. So, you know, the advice I've been giving to distributors is don't get caught flat-footed. Don't wait. Take decisive action, and also try to capitalize on opportunities. Obviously, everyone and their mother have been going and doing the work from home kit. And as much as that's become kind of a cliche sale within our industry of everyone trying to sell work from home kits to our customers, the truth is we sold millions of that. So, you know, I don't think that we want to go and look at this all from a standpoint of this is all really, really bad for our industry. There's a lot of stuff in which we can go and connect our customers to their clients or to their employees in unique ways through promo products that no one else really can, and no other form of advertising can. And so we see a huge opportunity here in that sense. And I'm trying to go and tell distributors in particular, you know, keep their heads up, you know, keep the mentality right, because our industry can be part of the solution to this whole thing.
Well, and certainly we've been an incredibly resilient industry over many decades. I mean, out of the recession, which, you know, the industry's sales dropped about 20%, the industry's been growing about twice that rate since then. And so we've been a very resilient industry filled with entrepreneurs, which is really incredible, and we're able to really manage our businesses aggressively. Joe at Overture, talk to us a little bit about what you're telling your staff to do. I mean, I think your folks are mostly employees, but correct me if I'm wrong about that. But sort of what's your, you know, direction to your staff? You know, are they spending time with clients right now, or are clients not able to even communicate to them? Are they looking at prospecting? You mentioned a couple of clients that you're quite busy with, but sort of what's your messaging to your sales staff right now?
So I think it's as much about messaging strategies as it is about what you're saying. We as a management team are trying to over-communicate with employees about what's happening at the building. We actually, again, we have a fair number of people in the building every day working for these two clients, you know, encouraging Zoom meetings, and we're just rolling out Facebook Workplace. What I'm hearing from the sales managers is that they're finding this to be a good time for relationship building with clients. Their clients are all at home. You know, for many of them, it's a slow time. So, you know, getting on the phone, planning for things that are coming in the fall or in the summer, and, you know, having, I guess, being able to be more leisurely about that kind of planning. So spending more time ideating and those kinds of things. So, you know, just checking in with clients, making sure they're well. Can we help you with anything? How are things going? How are you feeling? It's, you know, it's a good time to make connections that sometimes we don't have time to make.
I think that empathy and really feeling, you know, we're all in this together. I mean, we have a common enemy. The common enemy is this virus, and, you know, we're all fighting against that and using the tools we all have. I think we may have Craig back from Jack Nadell. Craig, are you there?
Did this work, hopefully?
So,
Okay.
Craig, tell us a little bit about what the status of your business is and what your messaging is to your sales team, and remind us how many sales folks you have around the country.
It's about 125. We're off about 35 to 40%. I heard the beginning of Joanne's thing and then it got cut off for whatever reason. I think that, as far as I can tell, that seems to be around the industry average. You know, and you can sell the things that are selling. You can sell gelled, you can sell, you know, webcam covers, and you can try and be in touch with people. I think that was Joe that was just talking about trying to do that and stay connected and get through it. But we're off about 35 to 40%.
And I know you have quite a number of large, you know, clients. You know, what are your sales folks telling you that they're hearing from their clients in terms of, you know, opportunity? Are they going to go dark for a little while? Sort of, you know, what's your messaging to your sales force in terms of what they should be spending their time on right now?
Well, still keep working with them, still keep in touch with them. Most of them are dark now. You know, obviously, with every upstroke, there's a potential. With every downstroke, even, there's usually some winners. So, you know, people who have, you know, Netflix or Peloton or you know, home gym equipment or something like that, you know, they can't hire enough people. They can't. They're going to be winners in this, right? You know, if you sell to a cruise line, and we do have a person who specializes in that, that clientele is going to be severely impacted, right? But I think most people, it's just regular businesses, like an ASI kind of thing, right? You're impacted secondarily, but it's still a big impact right now. So.
Yeah, I think everyone's seeing a big impact. But Joanne from Geiger, question from listeners. You know, let's assume that we're seamlessly and flawlessly all working from home. How do we generate business? So what's your viewpoint on, you know, is this a time to generate new business aggressively? Is it prospecting? You know, what's your instruction to the sales force, and what are you hearing back from your sales teams?
Well, it's a combination of two things. What we're doing is for the same issues that we're facing, our clients are facing. So if we have to postpone and put off travel or perhaps cancel an event, our clients are doing the same thing. So marketing is pushing out tools to the clients on how for them to make those connections with their constituents the same way we're trying to make our connections. And that seems to be resonating very well. Second part is that fundraising has really taken a big hit for the nonprofits in this dip. And so being able to connect out to nonprofits to help them stay connected and to create awareness of their particular issues has been really helpful for our salespeople. In regards to prospecting, it's tough to make a new connection today. It's easier to find old connections that perhaps you haven't had contact with in some time. We've been talking for probably 3 years now in terms of there's going to be some sort of recession coming, and having individuals prepare and pull their base from what they've been building in preparation. So now's the time where they're pulling from that toolkit that hopefully they've been preparing for the last 3 years, knowing that something would come. We had no idea, though, it would be this and how deep it would be. Nobody knew.
I think a surprise for all of us is that it wasn't just one or two industries. You know, typically people are cautious about having very much of their business in one or two industries or one or two clients, which is always good business not to do, so that you aren't hurt if there's one downturn. But in this case, of course, everything's getting hurt. Let's go to Phil and Craig. You know, you're both based in California, even though I know you have clients, you know, around the world. You know, there's the fifth largest economy in the world, you know, and it's often seen as the place that things really begin and end in the United States. So how do you see the promo market overall being impacted, you think, over the next year, you know, specifically in California, I suppose it's such a big economy, but sort of in general. So as we look out, you know, 3, 6, 12 months, let's start with Phil.
I think, you know, unfortunately, I think a lot of distributors are going to go under. And I think a lot of good people will probably lose their jobs, and a lot of talented folks out there will take a big hit in their income. And I think that we're hearing and talking to a lot of distributors and hearing from them that they just were kind of caught flat-footed and unprepared. And of course, no one could possibly have known that the coronavirus would hit in 2020 and affect in this way. But I do believe that there's a lot of preparation as an industry that we probably could have done in terms of embracing technology that would have made this a lot easier. I was talking to a distributor the other day that does not know what to do because they actually don't have the ability to work from home at all. If they're not in their office, they can't work on their systems. That's absolutely unacceptable in 2020. And I think that a lot of businesses have done a disservice to their sales teams and also to their employees by not embracing technology. So I think we're in for a rough ride. I think we need to be focused on creating opportunities for our sales team and helping our customers. I think there's an amazing opportunity to reach out to both customers and also potential prospects. There's never been a better time that I've seen to connect with human beings on just a human-to-human level than right now. Too many people in our industry, I think, are standing still on both the distributor and supplier side. And I think we just got to shake off that uncertainty and that just kind of paralysis that's there and to get going. Even if it's just reaching out to all kinds of people in your Rolodex that you haven't talked to in a while and talking to them, that's beneficial. That'll help in the months down the line, because eventually when the economy does open up again, it won't be business as usual, but it'll still be business. And if our industry is, I don't know, $25 billion, and let's say it shrinks by 20% overnight, there's still $20 billion out there to get. And so I think that's something that we all need to stay focused on. And I think that we've learned the hard way about the preciousness of time in responding to a crisis. And this industry spent far too much time, probably with our head buried in the sand. And now it seems that's something that's come to the front. And so now is our time to act. And I hope it's not too late for the leaders in our industry to get moving and help the others as well, because I think that this will be a challenge for a lot of the smaller distributors in our industry.
So Craig, you've been in the industry, I think, your whole life, pretty much.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen? We've got 20,000 distributor firms in the ASI network and 3,000 supplier firms. In 3 months, is that dramatically different? What do you think is going to happen in terms of the smaller distributors, especially, which make up a very large percentage of that 20,000 distributor firms? Is this a fundamental shift where we're going to wake up in 3 or 4 months and we're going to be in a very different industry than we are in today, or were in last week or 2 weeks ago?
I guess I'm less doom and gloom. I guess as an overall, I think this is 1918, not 1929. I think the next 3 weeks, 6 weeks or whatever are going to be really tough, right? I mean, everyone's on lockdown. I think to expect business to be anything but really pretty slow is probably unrealistic. But I don't think this is some kind of deep, dark depression that goes on for years and half of the industry is decimated. I think anytime there's some stress or anyone that's on the edge, this might be enough to put someone over, right? So I do think there probably will be some people that don't make it. There's been a macro trend for consolidation on the supplier side, especially, not so much on the distributor side, if you look at the numbers. So, you could argue there would be fewer suppliers even if it weren't for the virus. Maybe fewer distributors, not nearly as pronounced on that end. But I just think some of the weaker people, some people that maybe had really strained balance sheets that were not making money or barely making money before. Look at the zombie companies in the world, right? If you guys follow the stock market, 13% of the public companies, I think, are zombies, right? They need to keep going back to the market to raise funds before the virus hit. I don't know if those companies are going to make it, but I don't think it's going to be some decimation of the industry. I really think 6 months from now, we'll still have the virus probably, but I think the industry will look roughly the way it does today, probably a little smaller. So
Joe Gilly, what's your view of the industry and when we're back to whatever the new normal is in a few months? Do you think we're going to be looking at an industry that's dramatically different, or do you think one that's structurally about the same?
I do think there will be more consolidation, but I also think there's lots of help for small business out there right now. All kinds of grants and loans for small business, the stimulus that Congress passed last night, add the funding for a federal unemployment guarantee of full pay for 39 weeks, which 39 weeks is a long time. You know, you could furlough employees and know that they would be paid for a pretty long time. I don't know when it's effective because I don't think Trump has signed it yet, but I would just encourage smaller companies to be taking advantage of everything that's available out in the marketplace right now to help you get through the next 3 months. And, you know, they're pouring money into the economy or into business right now. So everything that you can take advantage of, do it.
I think that's a really good point. You know, everyone needs to be watching that. We're going to be covering it pretty extensively through Counselor Magazine to really see what can small businesses take advantage of these new programs, and it's still shaping up. We're not quite sure what it all is going to entail, but for sure there were a lot of focus points, as you said, on lending programs, guaranteeing loans, helping payrolls, you know, stay steady through the crisis. So I think those are some really good points. Joanne Lance, you know, Geiger's been acquisitive. Maybe this is a little too early to be asking this question, but you know, do you see, you know, the acquisition, trail picking up once we get out of this or into sort of whatever the new normal is going to be? Do you think there's going to be more consolidation on the distributor side, or is this going to weaken some distributors so much that the smaller ones won't even be able to really be acquired because the business will be so diminished?
In times of recession, the acquisition process has always increased and picked up for distribution companies. So I don't see that this would be any different than it has in the past. And like Phil shared, that we're beginning to see a ramp up of individuals reaching out to help support their business. I think though in times of recession, firms that are highly leveraged, and whether it doesn't matter if you're distribution or supply chain, this is where it's going to really push them over the edge. So it's about liquidity and having cash available so you can help individuals whose firms are perhaps teetering on the edge, or individuals need to make a change. It will certainly help you. At the same time, if you're leveraged, this is going to be a very difficult time, even with an economic stimulus package out there. I don't believe these companies are going to survive. The people, though, with strong sales skills always survives. And whether it's a very small distributor or a large supplier or a small supplier, those individuals who have sales skills will continue to survive. They may be wearing a different hat or a different brand, but they will still be there.
Great. We're getting a few questions from our audience. Let me pick up one of those. As a distributor who started the year strong and now orders have dried up to almost no flow, how long can we hold on to staff? You know, how would you, if you were a small distributor, be looking at salary cuts, layoffs, et cetera? Any specific advice you'd give on how to think this through would be really appreciated. Craig, would you like to take that first?
Sure. Obviously, I don't know their financial situation. I would say there's a hierarchy of what you need to save. It's almost like, you know, back when we were flying, we'll fly again someday, right? And you know how they start and they say, you know, in case of an emergency, the oxygen masks drop, put yours on before you put the child that you're with on, right? First and foremost, you got to save the company. So if the company's in distress, you got to do whatever you got to do to save that, because everything else is dependent on that. So, you know, I think Joe was right. If you need to furlough people, especially there's these attractive federal programs, I don't know how distressed they are, right? I don't know what their fixed costs are. I don't know how much money they have in the bank. I think Joanne hit it right. If you're really leveraged, you're in distress right away. If you have money in the bank, then you've got the luxury of time. But first and foremost, I would say do whatever you got to do to save the company. And then secondly, I would say look at your key people and make sure that they're okay, because it's a people business. And try and make sure they don't have to pay a price, so that you keep them with you happy and healthy and they're good employees going forward. And the people that you pay the price are you. I think Phil touched on that. You know, make whatever sacrifices you personally need to make, and look at whoever's in your organization that maybe is not that strong. and then do what you have to do with that. That would be the hierarchy, I would say.
Great. Phil, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that no, I would agree with what was said there, and I think that another thing too is our industry can be your friend. So it's not just any advice I'm giving to distributors. It's not just you going through this; it's a lot of distributors. So you can reach out to other distributors that are your size, see what they're doing for ideas. But also you can reach out to some of the larger distributors. And I think someone on the call mentioned earlier. Everyone on this call is probably in that caliber. Larger distributors can a lot of times help through really tough times in various ways. And so, I've been telling anyone who wants to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, and I'll be right there for you and helping out in any way I can. And so, yeah, I don't go into a bunker, when you're in these kind of situations. Instead, start reaching out to a lot of people. You'll learn a lot from the market. You might make connections that could help save your business.
Another question from thank you. Another question from an attendee. What's your concern?
Could I go back on that question before? I hate to interrupt you, but there might be a couple other things that
Absolutely, Joanne. Go right ahead. Joanne Lance from Geiger. Absolutely, go right ahead.
Because it's such an important question, and I apologize for interrupting, but I think as leaders, we need to lean in and lead first. So whether you have a small distribution company or supplier or a large one, we need to take the hit first, reduce our pay first before you do anybody else, and you need to cut deep into your own being as a leader. Second, talk to your bank, whether you're large or small. Try to understand what covenants you may have for your funding for your bank if you are receiving bank funding. And if you're in constant communication with the bank, they may help waive some of the covenants that you have that might assist you in that process. The third is talk to your employees and be fully transparent. Let them know exactly what's happening to your firm and your sales. First of all, they already know because they can see the lack of activity, and get their input and advice because they can actually help you make the right decisions in terms of your business. I think that those are really important steps that will help you manage going through this business. Thank you. Sorry.
Those are great points. Thanks very much for chiming through and bringing those up. Really, really great points. We've got a couple of suppliers that are on the call that are really asking the same question, which is, what can suppliers do right now to help distributors of all sizes in terms of, marketing tools, special assistance, reaching out? What can suppliers be doing right now? Let's go to Joe Gilly of Overture, and then we'll go around the table. Joe, what can suppliers be doing right now for you that's going to be really helpful to you and your sales team and your overall business?
We're in a little bit of an unusual situation just because we have these high volume things that we're working on that are very specific, and talking to suppliers about making sure that we have what we need when we need it. So it's a little bit of business as usual, I guess, in that regard. To the extent that people are still looking for the hygiene and safety things, making sure that they're letting us know when they have those in stock, and have sources for that and timing for those things. Companies are still looking for those things. So I think that would be a short term what we need from them.
Great. Phil, what can suppliers do these days to be really helpful?
I think being overly communicative is really important here. A lot of our supplier partners have been very good at answering our questions and giving us really transparent answers as to what their current situation is, both from a cash flow perspective and also from an operational capacity perspective. Both of those things are really, really important. So I think that's part one of it. The other part of it is I think it's important from an inventory planning standpoint to really be strategic about what inventory they're bringing in and how they're bringing it to market with us. I think that there is a lot of inventory that is not really needed right now at this point, and I think that there's a lot of inventory that is needed. I'd like for them to be really strategic with what inventory they bring in here over the course of the next month or 2 months to make sure that fits the needs of the market. I don't want any suppliers to be going on autopilot. I don't think many of them are, but if they are, that would be a big problem if they went on autopilot and kind of just went about business as usual, trying to sell their regular stuff without changing their inventory strategy.
Great, Joanne. What can suppliers be doing to help Geiger right now?
Well, I don't necessarily, well, here, some of these ideas may not necessarily help Geiger, and I agree with what Phil shared. A couple other ones for small distributors, be understanding and thoughtful about terms. If you're shipping a package to a client on behalf of a distributor, and that package is just simply not received or maybe returned back, work with that distributor to understand, where do we put that package? Does the supplier hold it? And does the distributor hold it so that it can be delivered once the shelter in place is removed? And if that's the case, have the supplier help understand payment terms for a small distributor, so that they're helping them or supporting them in the process. I think also one of the things I've noticed is that suppliers are canceling meetings, and partly because of a travel ban, but also because individuals are shelter in place. A supplier should use technology, the same technology as we're using today, perhaps with video technology, and still hold your meetings. Just don't cancel your meetings that you were planning on having with a distributor. Hold the meeting, use your technology, show your products, help have that dialogue on sales. This is not the time to go dark.
Great advice. Craig, what can suppliers do to be helpful to the industry right now, you think?
Well, most of the good answers are sort of taken. I guess I'd elaborate the first and foremost one. There still are orders out there, right? There's still order shipping. People still need help. And I would say to help with those orders, right? Freight is really an issue now, right? Warehouses are closed, places are not receiving goods, businesses that we're going to ship to. So if you could help people how to manage that, and there are probably a lot of different ways to manage that. I mean, I know we're finding it's different for different regions. It's different for different parts of the country. It's different. Suppliers are going to be shutting down. So helping getting orders delivered, or helping to come up with the best plan B for orders that cannot be delivered, I would say is really important. I think the other one, I suspect, I don't know that side of the business as well, but I suspect they're going to have real supply chain issues. And the stuff that they're going to run out of, that they're not going to be able to produce. I think if they could share that and be transparent with it, there's probably going to be plenty of inventory on some things, but China was shut down for a long time. It's still not full capacity. Things aren't shipping all in through the ports. The last thing, it's very frustrating when someone gets an order, because getting the order is the hard part, and then you can't get it produced. So trying to be communicative about what you really don't have, because there's plenty of product out there, but don't let someone sell something that then they can't get that order. Those would be the two that I would.
That transparency and honesty. That transparency and honesty is always important, but even more important in times like this.
Yeah, and everyone's going to understand their supply side issues. This is where, for most of us, from a business point of view, that's where this first came up, right? I mean, spin the clock back 6 weeks or whatever. That was our concern on this. It wasn't what was happening in the U.S. Maybe we didn't have enough foresight that way for most of us. But it was, how are we going to get things out of China? It's still the case. How are you going to get things out of China, right?
So Joanne, we've had a number of questions about technology and using technology internally to communicate with employees, but also with clients and with prospects. And you mentioned technology a couple of times and how you're using it. Could you touch on how you're using the technology and what ones you're using, and also are people using it with clients?
My two favorites are Microsoft Teams and GoToMeeting, or the technology you're using right now, GoToWebinar, with video cams. Every laptop has the ability to use a video cam, and that is the absolute, my favorite. Zoom is helpful, and Skype, though there might be some potential issues with security is, in particular on one of those two, and so you'll want to be aware of that. They're the best, in terms of video conferencing. The last is video itself. There's nothing like a personal video, and not necessarily the social media type videos that you see either on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, but just a personal message that you communicate from the heart to individuals, that you can send it to a number, whatever your group is, your customer network is, and simply share some ideas or thoughts. That seems to be working really well for technology.
Great. Phil, you've been in the cloud and been very, I'm sorry?
One more, use OneDrive to share common documents and common platforms as well. So you might want to look into OneDrive. Sorry.
Great, thank you. Phil, you mentioned that you've been in the cloud for a long time and have had a very diverse ability for your team to work outside the office specifically. What tools are you using, and what ones do you recommend for distributors and suppliers of all sizes to be able to use? And also connecting with clients, is that something you found to be effective as well in video and other ways?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main tool we're using is our proprietary ERP software called Core. That's the kind of lifeblood of our business, and that's the main thing we're relying on. As far as other tools, I think we're using similar to what other companies would use. We like Skype. A lot of companies like to use Slack. We like Skype. We're also using, obviously, all the different shared drive type services. So I think if you're out there and you don't have that already set up, using things like Dropbox or Box.com, any of those would be very helpful. As far as from a customer perspective, yeah, by all means, I think we should be using technology to reach out to our customers. So if you're not on a cell phone or text basis with some of your customers, there's no better time than now to get on that. I think there's a lot of sales folks that I've talked to that maybe felt a little uncomfortable, making that jump into the going from getting their business line to their cell line. Well, now there's not really another option. So it's great. Once you have someone's cell number, you can start texting with them. You can start sending them messages. You can start going and as you get close enough with them, start sending them videos or pictures. We want to lean into this whole thing. As an industry, we always say that this industry is based off of relationships. Everyone says that across the board. You'll hear that from every single distributor out there, every single salesperson out there. It's all about relationships. So this is the time in which we should really be building those relationships and making those connections. So I would say don't be afraid to use technology to really go and leverage that. An example would be like sending some pictures out of your kids to your customers, sending a picture out of your work from home desk and asking them for where they're working from home. It's just different ways to go and make that person feel good at a time where it's hard to feel good every single day. And I think that's not only something that'd be good for all of our businesses and whatnot. I feel like it's an obligation that we have, and let's put some oomph behind what we always say about this being a relationship-based business.
Thank you. Joe Gilley from Overture. What tools are you using? And also, are you personally reaching out to customers, or are you depending on your sales force to mostly do that? One of the questions that a distributor asks is, how much should the owner of the business do versus how much the salesperson who has day-to-day contact be doing in terms of communication? And how do you see that being important, and how are you playing that out at Overture?
So in terms of the tools we're using, we use Zoom. Our phones are Zoom phones, so we all have apps on our phone, so we can get whatever's coming into the business. We're getting on apps on our phone. We can do Zoom meetings from phones and laptops. And we moved into a new building in the fall and started using that technology then for video conference calling. So it's familiar and easy, and I know all of our teams are using it. Super easy to share screens with each other while you're on a Zoom call. So has been a huge difference maker for us in terms of keeping teams connected and staying connected with customers and being able to work remotely. We also we're encouraging people to do training while it's slow. We have a online-based training program through Skillsoft. So our staff has access to a huge range of training courses. And in terms of calling customers, I call when the sales managers ask me to. The ones that I have good relationships with, I'm in contact with them regularly. So it's a combination of letting the sales manager take the lead.
Great, thanks very much. Joanne, a question that was directed at you. Are you hearing clients making any firm decisions now on rescheduling meetings or other corporate events? I think there was a discussion or a comment earlier about corporate events all sort of being moved. And if they aren't being rescheduled, when do you think corporate events could maybe be starting to come back, and what's the outlook on that?
I've seen a couple clients that have rescheduled their events to the fall. And when I look at that, and when we're working with them, we realize that, of course, that's still tentative because who knows how long this will last and whether this will last into the fall. So we are definitely seeing that, and we're actually holding goods for those particular events. Others, when they've canceled their events, we strategize with them. We have a piece that we give them right away that simply says, how are you going to connect with the audience that you were planning on connecting with the canceled event? And we've been particularly lucky with taking those products, rekitting them, repackaging them, and sending them out to the individuals who were their best customers who were originally scheduled to attend that event. So still reaching out, helping them reach out to their prospects and their clients as they would have had they had the event.
Great, thank you. We're sort of wrapping up in a couple of minutes here. If each of us could sort of just share sort of our best advice for distributors right now of all sizes, but especially the smaller distributors that are looking at a pretty difficult situation as they all are. Craig, what would be your advice to distributors right now as we move forward, and we'll sort of go around the table?
I would say keep in mind there's a day after, right? I mean, if you're in stress, especially do what you need to do to survive. But this will end. Who knows exactly when it will. And you want to be positioned to be a strong company going forward. To keep investing in the right things. Keep trying to make sure to keep all your good people if you can. It's a people business, and keep your eye. You got to slay the dragon in front of you, but you'll slay that dragon, and then there's still going to be a path in front of you. Don't forget that. I guess that's what I'd say.
Great. Thank you. Joe Gillett from Overture Promotion.
I thought Joanne had some really good advice about talking to your bank. I would also add, ask for rent relief from your landlord. They would much rather you delay rent than go out of business. So ask for it. And this stimulus bill that was passed last night is for you. It's meant to help businesses make it through the next 3 months. Use every piece of it that's available to you. Get educated on it. I know it was just signed at like 2 in the morning, but read everything you can and start getting in line for whatever grants, whatever loans, whatever money they're going to make available to small business.
Great, thank you. Joanne Lance from Geiger.
I agree with everything that's been said, and I think it's really good advice. For distributor owners and supplier owners and salespeople, keep in mind that you're a leader. You're a leader within your company, you're a leader within your family, and you're a leader within your community. You want to keep your communications frequent, personal, and positive. Be fully transparent and engage the advice of all those around you. Everybody has good advice, and they all see things from a different perspective, and they might help you understand what the situations that you are in. Finally, take care of yourself. I'm doing this as a personal marathon, and so many of the techniques that I used for training and some of the past marathons I run, I'm using for myself. So I'm eating very healthy, I'm exercising every day, I'm getting outside, I'm going to bed early. Actually, I'm not drinking any alcohol, just as if I wouldn't when I was training for a marathon. So take really good care of yourself, because you have to keep yourself healthy and safe through this time, so that way you can be there for others.
Thank you. Phil Kusid, advice for distributors.
Yeah, I would say, I think it's important, as if you're an owner of a small distributor, you have to prepare for the worst. It's your obligation. And I'm not sure who said it earlier in the call, but someone said, I think it's 1918 and not 1929. But the problem is we don't know yet if it's going to be 1929. We don't know if there's going to be a depression or not. And so I think it's really important to remain, of course, very optimistic and upbeat and as positive as we possibly can. That's an important piece of this. But we also, if you're a small distributor, you have to plan for that worst case scenario. And that doesn't mean planning isn't like, okay, if things get really bad, then I'll think about this stuff. It's about going through the mental exercise of saying, okay, let's assume that everything gets really, really bad here and that we go into a deep recession or depression for a number of years. What does that look like for me? And ask yourself that tough question. Don't just shy away from it and say, well, I guess I'll just deal with that when I come to it, because that's just so scary. I can't think about that right now. You got to ask yourself those questions now, because if you don't ask yourself those questions right now, in a few months that could come knocking at your door, and then you'll be caught flat-footed. So I think that's a really important piece of this, is that we don't know how bad this is going to be, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. So as a result, we have to actually plan for all those scenarios. We can't just go hope that everything is going to be okay. And that's probably my number one advice to any small distributor, because I think my overall goal here is to have as few of those small distributors go broke as we possibly can. It's inevitable that some will. But the more that we're proactively ahead of this, and the more that our small distributors in this industry that make this industry really great are ahead of the curve on this, the better chance there is of survival for them. So think about those worst case scenarios, take them very serious, and create a very, very, very detailed plan on how you will handle that.
Thanks very much. I really want to thank everyone for tuning in. I want to especially thank our panel, Geiger's Joanne Lance, Craig Nadell from Jack Nadell International, Phil Kusid from BAMCO, and Joe Gilly of Overture Promotions. A recording of the webinar is going to be distributed via ASI's counselor promogram and also posted across all of ASI's social media. Look for the latest news, updates, case studies, and success stories on ASI's website at asicentral.com/coronavirus. Today, we also started a new daily email newsletter. It's going to come out every weekday afternoon, sent to everyone who gets counselor promogram, recapping the day's promotional headlines. Please connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and email me anytime at tim.andrews@asicentral.com. Thank you all very much for joining us. And again, thanks to our panelists. Take care, be safe, and stay in.